Hello, I'm Wendy. Welcome to our mini webinar about Gaol Photographs, or to give these archives their full name, the Gaol Photographic Description Books. I'd like to do an acknowledgement of country. In the spirit of reconciliation, New South Wales State Archives acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respect to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. Each jail across New South Wales created much the same records. So things like entrance books, description books, entrance and description books, photograph description books and discharge books. These are records about the prisoners, but some are also about what they looked like, as you could tell by entrance books, so that they could be identified in jail and afterwards if they reoffended. So what are the origins of the Gaol Photographic Description Books? Well, in 1869, the New South Wales Government commissioned Harold McLean, Sheriff and Acting Inspector of Prisons in the colony, to examine the management and working of the prison establishment in the United Kingdom. McLean visited prisons in England, Scotland and Ireland. He paid particular attention to the principles of prisoner isolation and separation and to penal labour as a method of punishment, but also to facilitate prison productivity. So of the 5 main objects that McLean proposed to be introduced in New South Wales following his study tour, 4 drew on those practices. The 5th, and this is the one that concerns us, was the introduction of a system of photography for the assistance of the police and prison authorities in identification. And this, McLean submitted, would provide a most material aid to the suppression of crime. In August 1871, McLean authorised New South Wales Principal Prison, Darlinghurst Jail, to take photographic portraits of prisoners. And within a couple of years, the practice was rolled out across prisons in New South Wales. We don't hold jail photographic description books for every New South Wales jail. We hold them for 15 jails. You'll find men, women and children in the 46,000 pages. And the best bit, as Emily said, those 46,000 pages are indexed, digitised and online. There's 2 things to bear in mind. As it says, one is we're digitising and indexing another 5,000 pages from the books that cover inebriates and foreigners, so keep checking for new material. And the other is that these are records of convicted criminals. And just like the convicts, they weren't all jailed for stealing a loaf of bread to feed their starving children. You may find things that are confronting or distressing when you search, but it is still really worth doing that search. The Gaol photograph description books cover roughly 1870 to 1930, but as you can see from this slide, the date ranges for individual jails vary, basically either as the jail was opened or closed or as they rolled out this system across the state. The inebriate books that are still being worked on cover 1908 to 1932, and the foreigners cover 1898 to 1928. So those 2 separate classes were a way of managing people that either had a particular problem, so you could be declared an inebriate, almost like a charge. And foreigners was a way of managing that particular group of people separately, so if someone was searching for them, it was a bit easier. So how do you search? Well, there's 2 places on our website you can search. You can either search through collection search or through the online indexes. And where you search is your personal preference. So let's look at both ways. So here's our website, records.nsw.gov.au. So to search in collection search, just scroll down and type a name in. I'm going to use Greenwood and hit enter. There's 833 results, but there are lots of ways that you can filter the results. So one of the ways is to scroll down until you get this second scroll bar and use that to scroll down until you get to the indexes, the entries in indexes. And if you can't see the Gaol photo, just click there and scroll down until you come to it. So it's called Gaol Inmates Prisoners Photos Index. If you click on that entry, it filters out everything but the jail photographic description book records. So that reduces us to 9. As you can see, there's those. We'll have a look at William Greenwood. Click here, I'm going to load the picture. Sometimes this is a little bit slow. This is a really typical jail photographic description book entry. They vary over time, like nearly every sort of record that covers 60 years does. So this is William Greenwood, taken when he, in 1874, when he was doing 9 months of hard labour for horse stealing. You get a lot of information. So you get native place and year of birth, if the person arrived rather than being born in the colony, as William was. You'll possibly get a ship and year of arrival, trade, religion, education, height and weight, colour of hair and eyes, he's got hazel eyes, and marks or special features, and also previous convictions. And there are frequently aliases. You can see here that William Greenwood had an alias William Johnson. So I'll just go back out of that. And of course, the aliases explain those sharp-eyed people among you that notice that of the 9 results for Greenwood, 3 are actually Harry Steele. So Harry Steele obviously must have had an alias of Greenwood. This is a much more recent jail photographic description book page, so it's from 1912. But again, much the same information. And here's his alias, Harry Steele, alias Harry Greenwood. So if you get a result that you think is a bit strange, just remember it's probably just an alias. So resetting my filters, another way that you could filter, you know that all of the jail photographic description book entries are digitised, so you could just click on digitally available. That reduces it to 45, so it's still a manageable set, and you may find some other interesting things as well. And again, you could then scroll down and hit on those 9. I think a great way to search, just through setting the filters, is to use a name and to add the word jail. The keen-eyed amongst you will have spotted that the name of the index is Jail Inmates Prisoners Photos Index. So while you get more than just the jail photographic description book, the records, the other records you'll get will usually be from associated types of records. So they're going to be possibly from the Jail Inmates and Prisoners Photo Index, which is basically a 1-line entry which may give some more information about their crimes, or the Criminal Indictments Index, which is for the Supreme Court and could possibly lead to papers about that. So it's useful associated material. Like I said, the form of the jail photographic description book does vary over time. As you've already seen, you might just get a full face photo, you might get a full face plus a side on. Sometimes they're a double page. You can see here Margaret Greenwood, this is the same woman. This page, it's a double page spread, has the photo and her personal information, and then you can possibly make out quite a lot of previous convictions. So the other way that you could search is through the online indexes. So click here, G for jails, and go to that index. And then to search the index. So I'm going to search for Lottie Little. So there's 2 entries for Lottie Little because people did reoffend even though they did get their photographs taken. There's a photo from 1915 when she's in Long Bay Women's Reformatory, and a photo from 1917 when she's in the inebriate series. So they're already starting to come through. The link from details takes you back to the same sort of screen we've been looking at. And this is Lottie's image. And you can see that, as it said on, there was a note on the index, water has got onto this page at some time in the past and has really washed away quite a bit of the information. So it's quite good that there's two. The other thing to note about the Gaol Photographic Description Book photos is they give you a huge amount of information about the people in that 60-year period. What did they wear? How do they do their hair? How did that change over time? So Lottie, obviously, which is typical, I think, for that time period, had long hair, and she's plaited and done a bun either side of her head. This looks like a sort of fairly plain serge outfit. So there's just a whole range of things that information you can gather. So when you get to this stage, if you want to go back to your second result, just click back. The search is lost, but not your search term. So you can just really quickly redo that search. And we'll have a look at Lottie, which it's about 18 months later. So over the passage of time, same hairdo, 18 months later, but it's now summer, a lighter weight, but a fairly similar looking outfit. So by this stage, Lottie had been declared an inebriate, so obviously had some trouble with alcohol. Now, go back and have a look at some of the other ways you can use the Gaol Photographic Description Book Index to do this. Like all of the indexes, you can search on a range of things, not necessarily just the person's name. So while I'm not suggesting that people from Dungog end up in jail, I just thought it might give me a manageable quantity of people over that 60-year period. So there's about 50 entries in that time period. So you can just increase the number of entries. So it's one long sheet. And like all of our online indexes, you could then export it if you want to into Excel, which means that you can sort any way you like and manipulate it any way you like. I'm going to sort by surname. And you'll pick up a whole range of different things. So John Appleby, same date of birth, same, it looks like it's a duplicate entry. Elizabeth Dickford and Alma Dickford, you'd have to think probably this in the same family, but they have the same year of birth, so that's what this is. And looking at this, there are a lot of aliases, so I suspect that Alma and Elizabeth are the same person. That'd be worth investigating. If you were doing family history or even local history, you'd probably know that the Hockhams and the Hockhams quite possibly are from the same family, and it's just a misspelling. So I noticed Thomas and Patrick Stapleton from Dungog, and they were photographed on the same day in Darlinghurst. So I thought surely they must be related in some way. So I'm going to go back to my search for Dungog and just add that name. Thomas Stapleton was born in 1853 and Patrick Stapleton in 1864, so possibly brothers. We'll have a look and see what they look like. This is Thomas Stapleton. And I will say he has a very fine moustache and other facial hair. As you can see, if we go to close up, very close up, they are amazing photos. So he's doing 5 years penal servitude for cattle stealing. He had previous form for cattle stealing, having beef in his possession supposed stolen, and larceny. So I said the detail's amazing. So it tells us that he has a mole on his right cheek. Let's go back and look at what's possibly his brother, Patrick. Again, you can just redo that search. And here we go, here's Patrick. And loading his image, you can already see there's, yep, very similar moustache and sideburns. So Patrick, if this is his brother, is 9 years younger. He only got 3 years for cattle stealing. He only had 1 previous conviction, so that may be why. Information that you might not easily get, I mean, images from people that lived in what was a comparatively small country town at that point. The last thing I wanted to finish with is to have a look at Robert Armstrong. You can see here in the remarks, it says name verified by an old index card. This really shows the reason we did digitise the jail photographic description books. We indexed them about 30 years ago, and that made them much more accessible for people to use, which is great. But unfortunately, they're quite fragile records, particularly our conservators tell us, as soon as you stick a photograph onto poor quality paper, there is going to be tension. And you can see here the damage, the bits of page that have been lost. The white infill is work from our conservators to stabilise the page. And you can see the lost information here and the fact that, yes, you would guess it was Robert, but having that confirmation from the old index card was a great help as well. So fantastic records and the best of luck with your searching.